Some of the best minds of our time have come to embrace an unbelievable concept: that the universe is a computer simulation. That some type of unknown system is all around us, and it provides everything we see and hear, everything we touch and taste, and that we are in fact part of this system. We are the programs, artificial intelligence programs living in a simulated reality. In simple terms, it is an operating system. People like Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and others have been asked, and they cannot rule out the possibility that reality as we know it is not real. How far back does this idea go? The 17th century French philosopher René Descartes, most notable for his quote, "I think, therefore I am," is generally considered the father of the simulation concept. Descartes believed that the information that we receive through our senses is not entirely accurate. In his dream argument, he states, "There are no certain indications by which we may clearly distinguish wakefulness from sleep," saying this due to us often being fully convinced our dreams are real when we are having them, showcasing that sometimes our senses, in fact, can deceive us. So what if this was true? What if everything we see and feel is only an elaborate VR experience? According to a growing number of the best minds of our times, it cannot be ruled out. Yet it seems more like a plot from a Philip K. Dick novel, more like a work of a sci-fi writer than a real possibility. Could this be true? If it is, it would be the most earth-shattering and world-changing discovery in history. The effects of this discovery would impact all life as we know it in a way that words can simply not describe. The truth is, we just don't know the truth. And testing it would appear to have many problems. However, maybe there is evidence. Maybe there is evidence that a system such as this exists. One of the only ways we would know is if someone ever found a way to expose the system. It is a foregone conclusion that we cannot see this system because clearly, if this is true, we are not designed to see it. It works seamlessly to show us our everyday reality. But what if we could hack into it and use it to manifest something that normally we could not do? That might be one way to expose it. If we were to assume this concept is true, that it stands to reason that anomalies in our otherwise well-oiled illusion would be a hint of the system's existence. Like if you woke up tomorrow and the sky was covered with those green lines of code from the Matrix. In other words, the system would have to have a glitch for us to start to question our reality. It would have to have inconsistencies and unexplainable fragments that do not and cannot fit in an ordered, hard fact-based reality. That would require hard evidence, unless there is evidence already, and in more than one place. Perhaps someone has or had hacked into the system before, and there might be evidence that some people have done this. You would just have to look in the right place in history. Maybe it lies in the realm of what most would call the dark arts. Over the past 2,000 years, a long-standing war on things such as magic, witchcraft, and sorcery has been waged by the recent forces of monotheistic groups. And while we think of these things today as fiction, up until the past 120 years, the dark arts, or magic, were taken very serious by the powers that be. Today we think of these things as nonsensical competing ideologies that have no place in a modern and educated world. But our ancestors viewed these as real dangers, and to them, it had real meaning. The stories of people conjuring up the spirits, hexing and cursing people, telling the future, they were not bedtime stories to them. They believed it. They believed it so much that they killed anyone accused of this work. Governments outlawed the use of magic and witchcraft. Even the use of herbs and plant extracts for healing were banned and called Satan's work. However, what if magic, witchcraft, sorcery were nothing more than a way to hack the reality simulation? If we were to think of them as a back door into a computer system or a cheat code for a video game level, these things start to have a different meaning. Perhaps they are a way to mold your personal reality. And perhaps that's why they have been sought after and outlawed. Much like the UFO sightings or other fringe events, some of what people have seen cannot be explained. Would this not hold true for the tales of magic and sorcery? Surely not all of the things that have been reported for centuries can be chalked up to the use of herbs in healing or sleight of hand, or not following the laws of the church. What if humans have had this power all along, and only recently have been forced to believe that it was all fake? Christianity and other deity-based religions have been trying to remove all teachings and knowledge of these things for 2,000 years. Deity-based dogma teaches us that we are in the service of a higher power, and that we will be judged and punished or rewarded after life, taking all thoughts of human power over our lives away and placing it in the hands of some mystical other. For over 700 years, these groups traveled the world, removing all history of old cultures and replacing it with a story of a common past, a common future, and a common God. They worked hard to erase all teachings and beliefs that did not track with the theory of the one God. Everyone knows these days the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, witch hunts. This era is known as the Dark Ages. They took overeducation, drove into people's mind this common history with such force and determination that almost everyone fell in line. Those that did not were outlaws, most punished by death. Their power and authority was total. They set about to remove and eliminate all outliers. If we are living in a simulation, and we are free interacting artificial intelligence programs, then anyone that would be able to abuse the system or use it for their own reasons rather than its intended use would be akin to a computer virus or a program conflict. These actions would not only create an imbalance in the system, but also threaten to expose the system as a whole. We would then have to look at these actions taken to remove the ideas of magic and witchcraft as the actions that virus protection software or conflict catcher software would perform. A program introduced into the system by the system to keep continual balance. When one considers the stories and fables of our past, it is really very interesting. From the gods of the Greeks, Egyptians, Aztecs, Incas, and Romans, to monsters and dragons and demons, incubuses, succubuses, vampires, werewolves, ghosts, and all manner of creatures of the night, the world was littered with horrifying things. What type of system would allow for these things to exist and also be able to keep any kind of balance? Only a system that was responsive to the users would allow them. Consider the internet in the beginning, free and open to all to use in any way we wanted to. The developers never considered that 20 years later we would have the dark web. People could hire contract killers, or the glut of porn would rampage across the web. Once the system began to be perverted, safeguards were put in place. Laws and new rules were added, and other platforms were established to block and protect the average user. Even today, we are still struggling with fake news sites, scams, and now even psychological influences to buy, vote, and hate. As the system grows and more people use it, it changes, and then we must provide a better, more stable control. So what if this system, our simulation operating system, started out by providing us with whatever we wanted, needed, or thought of? Later, as one group or idea took hold and created danger or an imbalance, the system self-regulated. First by developing sub-programs within the AIs that would prevent programs from asking for dangerous or destructive things. Perhaps social concepts like mating and love would create a need to protect and feel safe. These things would automatically stop people from inventing horrors. And perhaps for a time, that worked. Later, the concepts of discipline and selflessness might have also been used. Many ancient philosophies still exist today that speak about being one with everything and thinking of everyone's needs rather than the self. The idea would be that unskilled and undisciplined minds messing in a system could cause severe damage and manifest all manner of anomalies. The many and varied monsters and creatures from mythology as an example. Could these things be unintentionally created by novice hackers of sorts? Those that were poking around in a wildly complicated system? Many esoteric and non-traditional theologies and philosophies teach the power of thought, and that you can manifest desires if you reach a high level of consciousness. But they also stress self-discipline and self-sacrifice. They teach about letting go of worldly things and material possessions. Perhaps they have always known that if someone was to reach a level where they could influence our reality, that person must first be able to be trusted not to use the power for self-serving actions. Much like the internet, as more and more AIs populated the system, further safeguards were needed. Concepts of civilization and order would follow, and then self-governing by laws in the interest of the common good. As we started to use the power of governing and others sought to control that power, even more safeguards were needed. At every turn, the AIs found a way to hack the new rules until a point of total chaos was reached, and a unifying virus protection and controlling concept was needed. Like restoring a desktop to factory settings after a crash, or downloading a new and updated operating system. This one would be a clean slate, removing all responsiveness of the former system to the AIs, and providing a safe lane, boundaries in which they would exist. It would include a total elimination of any hint of the system, and that we could simply ask for what we want. Thus, the introduction of deity-based philosophies. Yet the reboot was not complete. The virus protection did not erase all outliers. And if we really do live in a simulation, it is here that some small evidence remains that the system exists. For in a balanced world of hard laws and pure facts, people cannot walk on water, move things with their minds. People could not tell the future, speak with the dead, or know what someone else is thinking. In an ordered reality world, these things could not happen. Yet many of them do. And while many have been explained as hoaxes, many remain that are completely unexplainable. Is this the evidence that we indeed live in a simulation? It certainly does not make a good argument against it. Beyond these strange abilities and tales of unexplained actions and feats by people, what other evidence might there be that we are in a simulation? Much like a computer that has been cleaned, there still can exist fragments of code, lingering out of sight. Even after each new download or reboot, this inexplicably complex system we could be living in has not removed all the old trash files, leaving behind evidence of things that simply do not fit into our new history, our new operating matrix. These things often run in total opposition of our collective beliefs. The written and oral histories of these monsters and demons and such remain, as do other evidence that things might have been very different in the distant past. Buildings and construction projects that we cannot build today with existing technology exist all over the world. They define any reasonable explanation to their use or intent. Things like the Great Pyramids, the pyramids in Mexico, the building structures in Peru using 2-ton stones at 12,000 feet, the Nazca lines. We do not understand how they were built or for what purpose. Once thought as mythical, cities like Troy, since discovered, speak to a glut of lost history that are not part of our recent collective line of thought. One of the most obvious ones surrounds the building of the pyramids on the Street of the Dead in Mexico. No one knows who built them. Master craftsmanship by a culture creating structures we cannot build today, using technologies that we have not developed, lost, or perhaps removed from history. Yearly, we find more and more buildings and cities underwater that we have no idea of the culture that occupied them, or built them, or their history, supporting ancient myths of floods, myths that predate the past 2,000 years, and the possible new safeguards used by the system. Hidden underground cities and dwellings, and ancient texts lost to us turn up that simply do not fit this new story. Further, we have tried to explain our existence here and cannot come up with a believable and clean explanation. We find new fossils or cultures that do not fit evolution, and we cannot locate missing fossils that should be there. Contrastly, we find cultures that have had knowledge of space and time from thousands of years ago that we have only recently learned. The Dogon tribe that lived without outside influence for thousands of years, yet knew detailed information on the Sirius star system that could only be seen with modern technology. Even space itself is filled with inconsistencies. Recently, we have been at a loss to account for the mass of gravity in the universe based on the material. This has led us to invent a placeholder for the inconsistency called dark matter, something we cannot see, but assume it is there. Even our own moon is inconsistent with all known planet-moon systems. Its size in respect to Earth is unique. Its existence is in question as to how it got there, and its locked, non-rotating orbit with us is unique in all known space. These inconsistencies defy our understanding and force us to invent explanations absent of fact because they do not fit what we have been led to believe. Every year we find more and more of these things, which begs the question: are these things, these fragments that do not fit, remnants of a past simulation? And if so, how many times has there been a reboot? How many generations of the simulation have there been? Consider this. The Mandela effect is a recent phenomenon that has been exposed by the collection of data and photos on the internet. While these inconsistencies may have been here all along, with the ability to access the massive amount of data online, they have come into clear view. These slight changes in advertising, media photos, and information have confounded people over the past 10 years, and more are found every day. Déjà vu is another phenomenon that's been with us a long time, and while we have a pseudo-explanation for this, often it does not fit the facts, an answer that simply does not feel right. Also, people often believe that they have met a person before, or that they feel like they've known someone longer than they really have. There is a long-standing concept of soulmates. You meet a person and you have an instant draw to them, a connection or feeling that you would normally assign to lifetime friendships or family. In what real world would feelings such as these exist? And what of the long-standing phenomenon of psychic ability? The sense that something is going to happen or is happening. Most strong in family connections, a person senses trouble only to find out that they are right about a loved one. Most common in twins, even some claim to have been able to communicate to each other without speaking at a young age, knowing what each other is thinking and feeling. Why would an ordered system allow this? Could these odd personal interactions and feelings be hinting at changes that the system made, or fragments of code from previous simulations that stay with us and refuse to be deleted? If we were to believe that the simulation is real, then all of these factors, anomalies, and inconsistencies must be part of this system. Whether they serve a purpose or they are glitches in the system, they would be all generated by that system, if the system exists. Our attempts to explain these things fall short on most fronts. There is an overall sense that something is wrong with our reality. Something is wrong with the reality we are presented with. People feel a sense of disconnect with each other and a real sense that they have no control over the world around them. While this is not uncommon due to the individual needs of a person, the main question from this is, why would we feel that we should have control and that the world should be responsive to our needs at all? Is this feeling a remnant of a time when the system did act to provide us with what we wanted? Do we have these feelings because somewhere in the past, the simulation was different? Proving that we live in a simulation or disproving it, all of these things must be taken into account. We would have to take each of these puzzle pieces and place them somewhere on the board. And in doing so, the entire life cycle system would have to be analyzed in new simulation terms. We cannot discount the massive amount of anomalies and inconsistencies that surround us. We have limited concepts of how we came into being. And if we have been created by a simulation and everything is running in a program, we would have to ask some hard questions about our life cycle. Why would we need to have the process of procreation? Why would the system create a program feature whereby the AI programs could blend their code together to create new programs? Is this a sub-program that creates a sense of purpose for us? Something to care for and nurture? Or a controlling program that keeps us distracted? Or one that makes us less likely to create evils and monsters? What purpose does this serve? And why would the new AIs need so much care and training? It would stand to reason that they should be able to act and provide for themselves from the start. When we install a new program into our computer, it does not need to be trained on how to interact by the other programs. It is designed to do this from its creation. Children, new AI programs brought into existence by older AI programs, have no such pre-programming. Yet down through time, this sub-program feature has been a constant, possibly making it one of the only few basic lines of code that have never been changed in the simulation, one that has endured from simulation to simulation. The question of why the system would need to remain undetected is another issue altogether. Why the simulation would, by design, omit its existence from us and our collective knowledge, leaving us to invent reasons and stories of our creation, leaving us to our own reasoning when we could have been given the knowledge of its existence and our purpose from the start, making us uncertain of the world around us and what our purpose is, constantly searching for answers to unanswerable questions, looking for evidence of a God or creator, or chalking it up to pure chance, bringing about the question of what happens after we die. The very fact that none of this has been given denotes a type of cruelty, or perhaps a test, or a research project. These are the questions that have plagued the mind of humans forever, and by and large, started us thinking in a way that has led us to the idea that reality is not real. When we consider the ideas that we have come up with, the pursuit of facts and truths, the drive we have to explain everything, another question becomes obvious. Why design us in this way at all? To question everything, to seek out answers to the world around us. Again, in the framework of thinking that it is a simulation, there is no less questions and unexplained reasons than exist in theology, evolution, or random chance. No easier way to arrive at provable truths, save for one impossible possibility. We have created the system. It is a feedback loop. And that the time we have been in the system is merely the time that we are still creating the simulation. We are participating in the creation of it as we exist in it. That it has always been and will be a response system. One that is constantly changing its operating parameters to accommodate our input. And as we reach consensus on questions and we collectively believe in truths, they become real. That at some point it could coalesce into a fully realized reality that has finite rules and boundaries, one based on our collective beliefs. A self-designing system that we ourselves have created the answers to our questions, absent of knowing we had a hand in it at all. And if you think that's impossible, think again. At the Quantum Gravity Research Center in California, that is exactly what they postulate. In a recent paper published by the researchers at the Quantum Gravity Research Center titled "The Self-Stimulation Hypothesis: Interpretation of Quantum Mechanics," they say that the physical universe is a strange loop that can self-generate new sub-realities in an almost infinite hierarchy of tiers inlaid with simulated realities of conscious experience. In other words, the universe is creating itself through thought, willing itself into existence on a perpetual loop that efficiently uses mathematics and fundamental particles at its disposal. The universe, they say, is like one grand thought that creates many thoughts, called code steps or actions. Physicist David Chester of the Center explains it this way. While many scientists presume materialism to be true, we believe that quantum mechanics may provide hints that our reality is a mental construct. Recent advances in quantum gravity, such as seeing space-time emergent via a hologram, also is a hint that space-time is not fundamental. This is also compatible with ancient Hermetic and Indian philosophies. In a sense, the mental construct of reality creates time-space to efficiently understand itself by creating a network of subconscious entities that can interact and explore the totality of possibilities. Suggesting that the pan-consciousness or universe itself is generating the simulation, and that the universe itself is one giant mental self-simulation. As to why, the paper argues that the universal consciousness self-actualizes using a natural algorithm called the principle of efficient language. What they are saying is that in a very real sense, we are the subconscious entities of the universe's consciousness, willed into existence by the universe itself. Left to create our own answers and define ourselves and our existence, to find meaning. In basic terms, the universe is on a mental thought junket, using all of its power and forces at its disposal to define itself. We are just tools to help it in this journey. Could this be true? That the very thing we seek to understand, existence, the universe, and everything, is itself trying to do the very same thing? The question is, how did these researchers get to this idea to begin with? The simple answer is, the same type of inconsistencies and anomalies we have talked about in people, places, and in our local reality exist on an exponentially larger scale in the realms of physics. These massive contradictions on a universal level have defied explanation forever. They have led these researchers to believe that the reason they cannot reconcile each provable part of physics into a whole, unified framework is because the universe and space-time is not a constant. It is not fundamentally real. What we think of as reality, what we can observe, is not following any logical order or rules. It defies our attempts to reverse engineer it because it was not built in a manner that we can conceptualize as we would a thing made out of known elements or material. On a very basic level, we ask the universe, "What is this?" And the universe answers, "Whatever you think, it is that." The search for meaning is pervasive. We search for it in our own lives, our work, and our very existence. We accept the reality we are presented with from birth, and many never question it their whole lives. We never give any thought to the fact that we can change it, even on the small and personal scale of our lives and the world around us. We are unaware that we are opting out of participating in creating this simulation, leaving it to others to effect change that perhaps do not represent our views or nurture our needs. Leaving the question of defining meaning in the hands of others, or worse, due to our lack of understanding of the system, never reaching a consensus of what meaning could be. If we are to believe all of this, then we are in fact making it so. And that is, at best, troubling. If this is true, we could be in for a long ride. Never before has our world had so much ability to connect with each other. Never before have we had so much information about each other to understand each other. And never before have we found ourselves so divided. We are withdrawn from each other today and feel separated from each other in a profoundly disturbing way. We feel lost, hopeless, and unable to effect any change. We fight, wage wars, and crave drama, and think only of ourselves in a way that surely is counterproductive to any type of consensus. A consensus that might free us all. If the system is a feedback loop, if it is by design giving us what we believe, we should expect more of what we have now and less of what our world could be if we were more in tune with it. If only we knew we had the power all along. So is our reality a simulation? There is evidence that it is. Are we able to effect change in this simulation? There is evidence that we can. Will we take part in creating meaning? Only if we choose. Whether we believe in a God or evolution, or that it is all a universal thought, makes no difference. Our problems are still the same. There is only one constant that is enduring, and that we have hard, empirical evidence of its power. Everything we have now, all that we have created, every move we have made from the caves into space, we have accomplished by cooperation. We have invented, built, and maintained civilizations by working together for the betterment of all. What else is true is that alone we have little effect on our world, but together we can do anything. The only question that remains is, will we?